بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today we're going to cover inshallah Surah Tawbah. Surah Tawbah is about 129 verses in Surah Tawbah, and Surah Tawbah is connected to Surah Anfal from the previous Surah. Surah Tawbah is mainly of the 10th juz and the 11th juz as well. And it's mainly right at the end of the Medina period where Rasulullah is about to pass away. This surah is revealed. It's after the Battle of Tabuk, which is in the 9th year of Hijri, and Nabi Sallallahu passed away in the 11th year of Hijri. So it's a couple of years just before he passed away. And this was in the year that, 9th year was actually the year that both Muslims and non-Muslims, they did Tawaf and Hajj together. This is Tawaf and Hajj because it was one changing and the other one coming. So this surah was supposed to be read to all in Mecca and Arabia at the time. This is the time where now is a person's, the message is supposed to go to the Arabians, supposed to go to the people of Mecca who are coming on Hajj. Now give this message, and what is the message going to come now? And obviously it is to do with idol worship, and it's supposed to be completely cut off, bara'ah, in this year. So they're completely cut off. So now they're giving the announcement that there's no more idol worship anymore in Arabia. That's it, finish up and so forth. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions regarding this. So you find these are the aspects of the beginning of, especially of announcement. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu made a huge announcement. They said that every single man here that is able, they will go and they will have to go into the battle of Tabuk and then go and fight the Byzantines, the Byzantines. And they have to go out and do this, every single person. There's no excuses. This is what Rasulullah sallallahu done. And he led this army all the way towards Tabuk, which is in the northern part of Arabia, which is on the border of the Romans. And then he went to go and fight those people, even though there was no battle that actually happened, where the call was made. So the whole point is to try and purify within and protect from out. So in Surah Tawbah you find that you're purifying all of the things which is inside of your Arabian Peninsula, and then trying to block out everything and protect everything that's coming from any evil and from the outside as well. And you find lots of verses to do with the military. So lots of military verses inside of this surah, and you find a lot of the enemies of Islam and those people want to take out certain things regarding Islamic verses in the Quran. They look at Surah Tawbah and they try to cherry pick and try to make it like this and try to make it like that and try to create arguments and so forth, and they usually go and attack Surah Tawbah. Now in this surah in itself, you find that the beginning part doesn't start with Bismillah. It doesn't start with Bismillah. It is the only surah of all of the 114 surahs, so 113 start with Bismillah, and Surah Bara'ah does not start with Bismillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Some are asking why doesn't it have Bismillah and so forth. And he mentions here they weren't sure if it was a separate such surah or it was linked to Anfal. So they're like, let's just not put Bismillah because we don't really know if it's part of Surah Anfal or is it a new surah. So they kind of merge it together and they didn't put Bismillah in at all. So you find that this is one of the reasons. Another reason behind no Bismillah at the beginning of the surah is that the surah was revealed due to a disassociation with a group. So there's not munasib. You're talking about tawbah, you're talking about istighfar, you're talking about taking away from all of this. So it's not supposed to be Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It's supposed to be about rahmah, about mercy. But this is not where mercy is really shown in that manner. So it wasn't munasib. It's not appropriate to try and put Bismillah. This is what some of the scholars have also mentioned as well. So let's start off with verse number 1 to 3. So this is where the announcement is made, and the announcement is to go towards Arabia, go towards Mecca, and tell everybody in Mecca, especially all the idol worshippers, that's it. You've got all 4 months. You've got 4 months to all get out. Everyone, there's going to be no idol worship at all in Mecca in itself. We're freeing ourselves from idol worship. Paganism is completely going to be cut off. You got 4 months to get out. So this is what the announcement was. And accept Islam. You can accept Islam or you can leave and so forth. So this was the ultimatum really given to the mushrikeen at that time, and these are the people that persecuted Rasulullah and the Sahaba for many years ago back. So this is why it's very important to realize that look at the message that Allah has given. It's not just about get out, that's it. No, it's rather if you do Tawbah and encouragement of Tawbah. Then after obviously the 4 months, what actually happens? Yeah, what happens is that you go and kill them, right? Because you've given an ultimatum. And then if you don't, then فَقْتُلُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَيْثُ وَجَدْتُمُوهُم وَخُذُوهُم وَاحْصُرُوهُم وَاقْعُدُوا لَهُمْ كُلَّ مَرْصَدٍ. So this verse was actually never enacted, meaning everyone either accepted Islam or they left. So there's no killing in itself after this announcement. Verse number 6 mentions if anyone, and this is a very important point, that if any of them ask for protection, they say, look, can you help me out? I can't do it in 4 months, or I can't move out in 4 months. And they ask you, our Muslims, if the mushrikeen ask you for protection, then give them that protection. Allow them to go to a safe place and allow them some sort of amnesty and so forth. Give them that time so they can go, with aman, with safety. So give them that as well. Don't just say, no, Allah has made it. No, give them that amnesty and so forth, and give them that safe place and give them time to go out as well. Verse number 17 to 22 in Surah Tawbah. It is not appropriate for idol worshippers who are in charge of the Kaaba. They shouldn't be in charge of the Kaaba. They shouldn't be in charge of the Hajj season and the Hajj system. They shouldn't be in charge. Muslims should be in charge. Why? Because it's our rituals, our worship. We follow Ibrahim alayhi salam and so forth. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And those who love Allah are attached to the masjid. Those who love Allah are actually attached to the masjid. This is verse number 17 to 22. Allah mentions regarding this theme as well. Verse number 24, Allah says that if you love your family and if you love your business, قل إن كان آباءكم وأبناءكم وأزواجكم وعشيرتكم وأموال اقترفتموها وتجارة. If you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than all of these different things, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is want. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wanting from all of us. So all of that should be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love should be above all of these things. So you can love your wife, you can love all these different things, but it should never be on the level that is above Allah. Allah should never be lower than number one. Yeah, it's always going to be number one, and that's how it should be. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes this, حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ أَمْرَ اللَّهِ. If you don't, then just wait for the decision to come. And what is this decision? There could be punishment and so forth. The main part here is, what is our priority? Our priority, yes, we have wives, yes, we have children, yes, we have our money, yes, we have business, yes, we have everything for us. But that should always come secondary. Our priority should be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our priority should be deen. Our priority should be those things which matter and are long lasting, rather than something which is temporary. And this is the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to put across for us. And then if we reflect, we will try and get these messages. In the next few ayats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions regarding the battle of Hunayn. And not many battles are actually mentioned inside of the Quran as in by name. But Hunayn, Yawm Hunayn is one of them. Maybe one or two. Badr is also mentioned, and Ahzab maybe is also mentioned, but rather not many battles are actually mentioned inside of the Quran by name. Yawm Hunayn is one of them, and this happens after the Fath Makkah, after they've conquered the whole of Makkah. Now they're in charge of the whole of Makkah. Now they go with about 12,000 strong army, and they're going to go and towards Ta'if and those Hawazin tribes and so forth. And they're confident. Some of the Muslims inside of the ranks, they said, look, we've got 12,000, they're less, we're more. You know what, it's going to be easy for us. We're going to go and conquer them. And they had this kind of confidence and so forth. But yet, when they got there, they got completely trapped. And there was an ambush, and they got, the arrows were firing from all different directions. Everyone dispersed and tried to run away, and yet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed on the battlefield. And then he made an announcement, and he said, look, everyone come back, where are you going? Don't disturb, how dare you leave the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then so forth. And everyone came back, and eventually they won. But the whole point was that look what they thought. They thought that our numbers are more, so we will win. But when has numbers ever counted in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Even if it's one person, two person, even if it's 300 against 1,000, even if it's 1,000 against 3,000, numbers don't matter towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's whether you have the trust, whether you have tawakkul, whether you return back towards Allah and ask Him for help. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you. And this is what has happened in the past. So don't think that because now you're more in number, that now definitely you will win. Rather, it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't rely on the asbab and the means. Rather, you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In verse number 39, Allah mentioned regarding Tabuk that many of the munafiqs, many of the hypocrites, they gave excuses. So the i'lan was done that every single man was supposed to go into the battle, go to Tabuk, and we're going to go and fight the Byzantine Empire. We're going to go and fight the Romans. So everyone wants to go. What happens? The munafiqeen came up to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam one by one. I've got this excuse, I've got that excuse, I can't go because of this reason, I can't go because of that reason. And they didn't want to be part of the battle. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala need anyone's help? He doesn't need their help. So He said, this is for you. Do you think I need all of these people to go out? and then go into the battlefield. I don't need none of them. But it's for you, it's for your own sake that you should go out and then strive and then sacrifice all of the things at home and go out into the fi sabilillah and then so forth. It's for your own self. Allah will give the help, Allah will give the nasr, Allah will do this, Allah will do that, but you have to do the actions. You have to go and sacrifice. You have to go and put the foot forward and go into take the next steps. You have to do this. So this is for your own, as in for your own sake, it's for your own benefit. It's not for Allah needs more people to help him out. No, Allah doesn't need this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do it for us and so forth. And this is also happening in the next few ayats. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned regarding that, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala need help in Badr? Yeah, in Uhud? Did he need help? Did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam need help from all of these people, from all of the whole army when he was fleeing Mecca and he was in the cave? Did he need help from people? No, he didn't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that helped him. Allah is the one that can guide people and then misguide people and so forth. لا تحزن إن الله إلا تنصروه فقد نصره الله. Allah is the one that gave the help and so forth. He doesn't need it, but if we go and take part, we will also be blessed. And it's for our own benefit as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions regarding this, verse number 75, 77, it talks about regarding the hypocrites, regarding the munafiqeen, and they made promises with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if we have this and if we have that, then we will do this, Ya Allah, we will do that. And if I am rich, then I will be generous. Lots of people have this kind of thought process. Once I get money, I will be very generous. Ya Allah, give me millions of pounds so then I can give it into charity. The whole point is that Allah does not look at how much you are giving. Allah says that, are you going to be generous? Go and be generous. Even if you have a little, just be generous. If you have a lot, then you should be more responsible in being generous. But if a person who is poor, he can be generous. Whatever he has, he can give it. A generosity is not according to how much money you have. Generosity is that, can I give? Yes, I can give, let's go and give. This is what generosity is about. So Kareem and being generous is very important for all of us. But you don't need money to be generous. A person doesn't need money to be generous. Whatever he has and he can give, he just gives that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be happy. He doesn't look at how much. He's not going to help Allah. It's not going to help him like Allah doesn't need all of this stuff. But it's for our own benefit. So generosity and being that type of person who is not stingy, who is not miserly and so forth. Because a person who is a millionaire can also be miserly and stingy. How do you know that quality from when you are poor to you're rich is going to go and not transfer? You can transfer. So this is now something to really be wary of. And they sat back and they criticized the people about the people. They said, oh, look how much, when everyone was giving in Tabuk, and then Abu Bakr came and he said, I'm giving everything. Umar came and he gave half of his wealth. And then some poor people who didn't have much said, look, I'm going to give 2-3 dates. They said, I'm going to give 2-3 dates. So the munafiqeen started mocking, look what he's giving. How can this help anyone? 2-3 dates, that's all he's giving. So they mock the people. Allah doesn't look at that. Allah looks at he's got nothing and he's giving some dates. That's something big in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So never think that even if you're giving little, that it's not going to have an effect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put so much barakah because of the sacrifices that you make. And then at the ending of Surah Tawbah, coming towards the end, Allah mentions وَعَلَى الثَّلَاثَةِ الَّذِينَ خُلِّفُوا. It talks about regarding the story of Ka'b bin Malik. Very famous story of Ka'b bin Malik radiyallahu ta'ala an. He was part of the people that stayed behind in Tabuk. Meaning he didn't go out in Tabuk. Even though Rasulullah told him to go, he did not go. And something kept him behind. So what had happened is, the munafiqeen will stay behind. And all the Muslims went out. But there was 3 that was left behind, Muslims. When they came back, and Rasulullah came back, all the munafiqeen gave excuses. Oh, this happened, that happened, I couldn't come, and they were lying. And then Ka'b bin Malik said, look, I have no excuse. It was because of this reason, I don't really have an excuse. What's going to happen now? Please forgive me. So he goes, look, thank you for being honest and truthful. And you were very truthful at this time. You could easily lied and got away with it. But you were very truthful. So this trustworthiness, Allah says, he goes, you sit back and you wait. I'm waiting for the decision of Allah. Allah will know. So he kept silent and he waited for Allah. For 50 days, people boycotted him. Those 3 people. 50 days. No one was allowed to talk to them. No one was allowed. And feeling isolated for 50 days is not easy. The whole community knows that you have done something wrong. So for 50 days, he didn't do it. And then again, after 50 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَظَنُّوا أَلَّا مَلْجَأَ مِنَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا إِلَيْهِ. He thought that, where can I hide? I can't hide anywhere. So I might as well go and tell the truth. So this is what he done. And then after 50 days, he was given forgiveness by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse number 111 to 112, Allah mentions regarding qualities of the believers: التائبون العابدون الحامدون السائحون الراكعون الساجدون الآمرون بالمعروف والناهون عن المنكر والحافظون لحدود الله وبشر المؤمنين. They give glad tidings to the mu'mineen. And who are these people? They always pray their salah, they always do sujood, they always do amr bil ma'ruf, they always do nahi al munkar, they tell people to do good, they stop people from doing evil. And then bless those people and give glad tidings to the people who are the mu'mineen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentions verse number 92 as well, that some people couldn't go because they didn't have animals. So they couldn't go to Tabuk, they didn't have animals. So they started crying and they're waiting for maybe somebody to offer an animal to them so they can go out. And they're crying and they really they couldn't go because they didn't have the means to go. So they got all of the reward of going out in the battle, but because they didn't have the means, they stayed behind. But they got the full reward behind it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions regarding this incident as well. Look how sincere they were. They're very sincere in a manner. They wanted to go out, but they just didn't have the means and so forth. They decided to cry and so forth. So in your intentions, always aim high. Always have the highest intentions. It's very important for all of us. Have high intentions. Even though it doesn't happen, you will be rewarded according to your intention. Lastly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Masjid Dirar. So وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخُذُوا مَسْجِدًا ضِرَارًا. And this is the Munafiqeen's mosque. Yeah. So the Munafiqeen leader, he said, I want my own place. Let's call Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the place so then everyone sees like this. But this is like the little spy hub that they wanted to go and make disunity and create disunity and so forth. So the leader decided to open up this masjid away from Masjid Nabawi and split up the ummah and his own base and so forth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put down an ayat of the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مَسْجِدًا ضِرَارًا. They make what's the right word? It's like a masjid for harm, a harmful masjid. That's what they called it. A masjid to harm and cause disunity. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't go there. لا تقم فيه أبدا. Don't ever go inside there. This is the call towards Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Rather go to the Masjid al-Ussisa ala taqwa. Go to the Taqwa Masjid around the corner, which was Quba Masjid as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions also in Surah Tawbah, mentioned regarding the categories of zakat, which I've covered, and the calendar, Islamic calendar, which is mentioned regarding the 12 months, is mentioned inside of the Quran, 12 months as well. And the last verse is لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. These last verses describe the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how much concern he has over the suffering of the people of the mu'mineen, how much du'as he has, how much full of compassion, and the inner thought. It describes the inner thought process of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is very powerful ayats regarding how the quality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, and always we should have this connection with our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَهُوَ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْعَظِيمِ. That we should say, Hasbi Allah, that Allah is enough for us. La ilaha illahu, there is none worthy worship except Him. Alayhi tawakkaltu, we only make tawakkul and trust upon Him. This is very important that we should try and do. These are some of the messages of Surah Tawbah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ability to act upon what has been said, inshallah. Inshallah, if everyone can try and move forward, fill up the gaps, inshallah, so then we can try and fit everybody in.